p.m. Debate is interrupted for the consideration of the electronic petition signed by 20,000 or more persons listed on the business paper, which today is regarding safety level crossings lodged by the member for Cootamundra. I have a few words I need to say. Sure. Sorry. Before we commence the debate, and for the benefit of the many people who I'm sure are listening online, I want to take this opportunity to explain the process and rationale behind this unique debate. It is unique because it enables the public to directly bring their concerns to the attention of this House. The intent of this procedure is that the petition debate will start with a speech from a member, which in most cases is the member who lodged the petition, that is, the member for Cootamundra, followed by up to 4 other members, followed by a minister in response, and to conclude the debate, the member for Cootamundra will speak in reply. After all members have spoken, the House will vote on the question, that is, that the House take note of the petition. The question in most cases will be determined by voices and be passed. However, if this is challenged by a member, it may proceed to a division where the bells are rung and members vote on the motion to take note of the petition by sitting at the appropriate side of the House. Before I put the question to the House, I want to inform the House that the Speaker has made a special exemption on compassionate grounds to allow visitors into the Cooper Gallery for today's petition debate, and that gallery not being part of the chamber for the period of the debate. The Speaker has also authorised 2 media personnel to film the petition debate proceeding today, and I will remind the media representatives that in recording the proceeding, they should not film the visitors in the public gallery, in the Cooper Gallery. I do want to warmly welcome to the Cooper Gallery and for the petition debate today, Madeline Bott, Francis Bott, Courtney Bott and Shakaya Bott. And pleased that you're able to join us for the duration of the petition debate. They are the guests of the members for Cootamundra and the member for Maitland. So the question is that the House take note of the petition, and I call the member for Cootamundra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is an honour to present this petition today on behalf of Ms Madeline Bott, the communities of the Cootamundra electorate and communities across regional and rural New South Wales. I acknowledge Maddie, her mother Frances and sisters Courtney and Shakaya, who are here in the gallery today. I acknowledge those back home gathered at the Grenfell Bowling Club, including Mr and Mrs John and Angela Hunter, their families and friends, the families of those tragically killed in the Girogerry level crossing accident, representatives from the Lachlan Regional Transport Committee, the mayors of the Wedden and Cowra Shires, the CWA of New South Wales and the broader community. This petition attracted an incredible 21,011 signatures, warranting its debate in the Parliament today. By way of background, in February of this year, Mr Ethan Hunter and Mr Mark Fenton were involved in a tragic accident at a level crossing near Bribbury in my electorate. Carding Gibson in a B-double truck, both men who call the Weddenshire home were killed instantly when their vehicle was struck by a train as they crossed the railway line. Mark was only 50 years old, Ethan just 27. Son of John and Angela Hunter, Ethan was Maddie's fiancé. I acknowledge the deep pain felt by Mark and Ethan's families, friends, work colleagues and the small community of Grenfell. The loss of 2 much-loved people in their prime hurts entire towns, and the anguish reverberates across the region. I also pay tribute to the first responders attending the accident, most of whom I have come to know well over the past 4 years. Thank you for all that you do. Maddie, John and Angela have bravely turned this personal tragedy into action, calling for more to be done to improve safety at level crossings. From our very first meeting, I have committed to working hard on this issue on behalf of the families and communities across my electorate and New South Wales. Whilst the task is a huge one, with the support of the Deputy Premier and Minister for Regional Transport and Roads, we have already achieved change, and I will speak to that today. Currently, there are more than 2,700 road level crossings on operational lines on the New South Wales railway network, 1,360 on public roads, the remaining on private properties such as farms. 434 have active controls like lights and boom gates. The other 926 have passive controls like stop or give way signs. Between 2008 and 2021, there were 84 collisions between trains and cars at level crossings in New South Wales, resulting in 10 fatalities and 15 serious injuries. More than 30% of accidents occurred at locations where the speed limit was 100 kilometres or more. The New South Wales Government, under the leadership of the Deputy Premier, has committed to actioning a suite of options in the short term that will have long-term impacts to make level crossings safer across the state. Over the past 8 months, speed limits have been reduced to no more than 80 kilometres at 28 level crossings in a number of regional locations, including Orange, Albury, Port Macquarie, Narromine, Cootamundra and Dubbo. In the coming months, another 82 level crossings will see their speed limits reduced. This will increase safety by allowing drivers more time to react and stop, mitigating the likelihood of crashes. This is particularly important for heavy vehicles, which need more time to stop due to their size and weight, and will work in combination with other safety measures, such as the scores of electronic signs rolling out on key freight routes and high-risk level crossings across the state. Just 2 weeks ago, I was with Maddie to announce a new initiative whereby farmers are eligible for special red and yellow coloured farm gate signs to help increase awareness of level crossings on farm properties. In the technology space, Transport for New South Wales is gearing up a trial of low-cost level crossing system technology, which will increase safety at a number of level crossings across New South Wales. Pleasingly, as requested by this petition, the New South Wales Government acknowledges the obvious safety benefits of active traffic controls, especially boom gates and flashing lights, and to this end, we have commissioned more major upgrades across New South Wales. In closing, it is incumbent on all of us to work together across layers of government, with rail managers and operators, across industry and with the community, to try and ensure that no other family goes through the pain of losing a loved one under such tragic circumstances. We are making a difference, and with hard work, we can achieve even greater change.
I thank the member for Cootamundra. The question is that the House take note of the petition.
Speaker.
And I call the member for Maitland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the 23rd of February 2021, 27-year-old Ethan Hunter and 50-year-old Mark Fenton lost their lives at a passive level crossing near the Yarrabah Lane level crossing at Birrabee near Grenfell. On behalf of the New South Wales Opposition, I want to start by offering our most sincere condolences to the Hunter and Fenton families. And I also want to acknowledge Maddie Bott and her family who are here today in the chamber, and I want to thank the Speaker for allowing that to occur, because it's really important that you are here today to be there. I also want to thank and acknowledge Angela and her husband John Hunter for the time that I had with them last week, and also the supporters at the Grenfell Bowling Club and other stakeholders who are watching the live stream today. I want to also acknowledge the Country Women's Association, New South Wales Farmers, the Rail, Tram and Bus Union, the Transport Workers Union and the Health Services Union for their support for this petition and the conversations that I've had with their office holders in relation to this, and Lara Jensen from the Wandanong Station in Mount Magnet, WA, who reached out to me to advise me that the Jensen, Broad, Smith and Dempster, Stephen, Levitt, Lorman, Wooden, Morley Betts and Boat families have joined now in what is a national campaign for improving safety at level crossings, and it's really important to have that. I've spoken with Maddie a number of times, and she's spoken with my office, and recently met, as I said, at the site of the fatality, and I want to really deeply thank you for that. It was a very courageous and very difficult thing to do, and your courage and commitment in meeting with me at a site which brings such pain, trauma, sadness and grief is so appreciated, because every time, and I really got this driving after Maddie and Angela, and every time in Cowra Shire, after meeting with Councillor Bill West at Cowra, to see that every time you go over a level crossing in that community, it brings it back, and that is such a hard thing to live with, and your advocacy on the need for real action in the face of that most intense and personal grief is absolutely inspiring. Maddie's been relentless in campaigning for change. She said recently, I want people to stop being sympathetic and empathetic, and I want them to start putting a plan in place that we can start achieving to fix these crossings. And it's clear that such action is long overdue. The New South Wales Government recently confirmed to a question I put on notice that of the 1,360 level crossings on public roads in New South Wales, 927 do not have boom gates and or flashing lights. In the recent ABC Landline program on this topic, we learnt that in 2004, following the deaths of 5 young friends, who were Kyle Wooden, Cameron Tucker, Graham Kelly, Luke Milne and Ben Wilkins, at what became known as the 5 Mates crossing near Wagga Wagga, a New South Wales Parliamentary Committee also recommended better safety systems for drivers at level crossings and a review of measures including strobe lights on locomotives. A spokesperson for Transport for New South Wales said its focus is on upgrading high priority public crossings, but said since 2011 there have been 67 major upgrades to crossings, including the installation of lights, bells and boom gates. There's just 927 to go. The rate is too slow. In the 2009 Stay Safe Committee report on updating progress on railway crossing safety, which happened after the 2004 review, we learnt that in just 2 years, during the last Labor government, 57 railway level crossings were approved from closure. There's a need for great and much more urgent action by the New South Wales Government on this issue. Just recently, there have been 2 more serious crashes in New South Wales at level rail crossings, one at Wallarobba near me, south of Dungog, on 23rd of June, where 3 people were admitted to hospital with serious injuries, and one at Kembla Grange, Wollongong, where a train hit an abandoned car and 4 people suffered injuries. One of the things that stood out for me when I spoke to Maddie was her concern over the comments by regulators that one mistake shouldn't cause someone to lose their life. We need to be clearer that this is not a mistake or a lack of attention or a lack of education or awareness or carelessness or speeding. The people who have lost their lives at level crossings are victims. We have to think about how we are treating the known risks to health and safety where trains interface with cars. Consider the heavy vehicles that are lit up on our roads and yet trains are not. Flatbed carriages are left on trains without freight containers, that dust can rise as vehicles stop on the dirt track, that sun and other light conditions as well as overgrown trees and grass and other vegetation can obscure vision, and that active crossings in some places in this state have more signage and more warnings than ones where less signage and warnings than those which are actually not in use anymore. We know that these risks must be managed better than this, and I'm really sad that we haven't had more time to speak on this issue and that we aren't able to have more speakers, but I give my commitment to Maddie and her family and all of the families of the victims that I will do whatever is in my power to escalate action on this very important topic. Thank you.
The question is that the House take note of the petition, and I call the member for Upper Hunter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to be representing the people of the Upper Hunter on this petition calling for level crossing safety. I'd firstly like to acknowledge Maddie Bott and her family there in the gallery and acknowledge their loss that they've suffered due to the accident. Nothing we do in this House will make up for that loss. But the work that you've done shows a strength of character, and I hope will make a better place for everyone in New South Wales and across Australia. The work that everyone has done to bring this petition to this Parliament. But of course, this is an issue close to my heart because we've seen a number of tragic accidents in my own electorate. A few months ago, on the Dungog-Wallarobba Road, 3 people seriously injured. And then very recently on Tooranville Road, a very close near miss. And the truck driver that got hit there, very lucky to get out of it with his own life. So I went down and I actually visited the site, and I met up with Nick and Doug Robertson, who live on Tooranville Road. And we had a look at some of the factors that led up to that accident and these contributing issues that lead up to these accidents. And since then, I've been working closely with the Deputy Premier on the government's plans to make a difference in this space. Safety at level crossings have and will continue to be a priority for the New South Wales Government as part of our effort to drive the road toll towards zero. And as a local member with a number of level crossings in my electorate, I know the safety challenges presented by these for communities all around Australia, in rural, in metro areas, on public land, on private land, on our farms. In fact, last week I announced the speed limits will be lowered at 5 level crossings across the Upper Hunter as part of our drive to improve safety for motorists. And I know that one of the requests in this petition is decreased speed limits on highways, on approaches to level crossings. And as the member of Cootamundra said, the New South Wales Government has been proactively working on reducing the road speed limits on approaches to level crossings over the last few years. And we've taken it one step further than what has been requested. The Transport for New South Wales is assessing and reducing speed limits on approaches to all actively controlled level crossings in New South Wales, not just those ones on highways. And in 2019, the government developed the speed limit on approach to active level crossings policy. This policy requires that the speed limit at level crossings, actively controlled by flashing lights and boom gates, and on those approaches to them, be set at a maximum of 80 kilometres per hour. And as of August 2021, the program has identified 110 active level crossings for speed changes. Of those, 29 level crossings have had their speed reduction completed. The new speed signage is now in place on the approaches to these crossings. 28 level crossings were in the speed reduction implementation stage, and the remaining 53 level crossings were undergoing speed zone review. The program began in November 2020 and is planned for completion in 2023. Crashes at level crossings represent only a small number of the total crashes on New South Wales roads each year, but we know the outcome can be tragic. They have potential to cause multiple fatalities. They have devastating impacts on families and entire communities, and the damage costs exceeding tens of millions of dollars. Between July 2008 and June 2021, there were 84 collisions between trains and cars at level crossings in New South Wales, resulting in 10 fatalities and 15 serious injuries. More than 30% of these occurred at locations where the speed limit was 100 kilometres or greater. We know that reducing the road speeds to a maximum of 80 kilometres an hour will allow motorists more time to react and decrease the likelihood of vehicles not being able to stop at level crossings. Off the back of this statewide safety review, my electorate will see speed limits reduced to 80 kilometres on the approaches to level crossings at Hilldale, Wallarobba and Berrico, and 60 kilometres on the approaches to level crossings on Wards River and Bulliac. We've started on the journey, but we've got a long way to go. Everything we can do to improve these crossings is a step in the right direction.
Thank the member for Upper Hunter. The question is that the House take note of the petition. I call the member for Shellharbour.
Thank you, Speaker. Today, I want to draw attention to the prevalent issue of level crossings and the safety concerns which arise from them. In doing so, I want to commend the member for Cootamundra for raising this issue earlier this year and for highlighting the Maddie Bott's calls for the government to do more in relation to improving safety at level crossings. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Maddie, her mum Frances, her sisters Shakaya and Courtney, who are here with us today in the chamber to witness this important debate. I cannot begin to even imagine what you've been through in losing Ethan under such tragic circumstances earlier this year, and please accept my heartfelt condolences. Just last month, in the early hours of Wednesday, the 20th of October, a New South Wales Trains passenger service was derailed after colliding with a vehicle that was left on purpose on a railway line. That was just near the active level crossing at Kembla Grange, which the member for Maitland has already highlighted. The derailment caused significant damage to the train and the rail infrastructure in the area, and 4 people were taken to hospital. My thanks goes out to the driver and the guards for their actions on this day under extreme conditions to secure the train and ensure the safety of all passengers. Although this vehicle was found to have been deliberately left on the tracks to cause damage, it highlights the ease in which such detrimental harm can occur as the result of the accessibility of these level crossings. 2 years ago, also at Kembla Grange, a motorist narrowly avoided a collision with an oncoming train after driving through the level crossing without noticing the warning lights, with mere seconds separating a potentially deadly collision. Whilst this thankfully is an example of a near miss, from 2001 to 2020, there have been 154 crashes between trains and vehicles at level crossings in New South Wales. These incidents have resulted in 14 fatalities and 24 serious injuries. It is all well and good for us to react to these examples and implore drivers to take better care on the roads. However, there will always be circumstances where someone may make a mistake or take an unnecessary risk. Does this mean that the person and those potential people on the train should be exposed to such greater risk of serious injury or death? Absolutely not. This is why I implore the government to take a greater look at the necessity of level crossings. Rather than hoping every person will take the appropriate steps to avoid such hazards, why not completely mitigate these risks altogether by removing the dangers? There are a variety of benefits which rise from the removal of level crossings. Removing the danger of trains sharing crossings with vehicles and other users will help improve overall safety on the roads and for pedestrians. Also, the removal of the level crossing will greatly reduce the congestion, thereby eliminating frustrating delays for motorists by eliminating the stop-start nature of boom gates, and we all know this. It will also improve travel time and reliability, and that just naturally flows on as a result. Speaker, the Victorian Government established a level crossing removal project to oversee one of the largest rail infrastructure projects in their state's history. Central to the project is the target of eliminating 85 level crossings across the metropolitan area in Melbourne by 2025. Such a program not only enhances safety on the road for motorists and pedestrians, but it also creates new employment initiatives, facilitates a greater level of community engagement, and fosters innovation in a sustainable manner. Speaker, I implore the government to consider the implications and the dangers of level crossings and to consider the viability of an alternate measures which aim to mitigate the issue by removing the danger altogether. Level crossings provide unnecessary risk to the general road safety, which the supposed benefits fail to outweigh, and I hope that this is the year that the government decides on this issue once and for all.
I thank the member for Shellharbour. The question is that the House take note of the petition. I call the member for Barwon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to acknowledge Maddie and the family in the gallery, and thank you very much for being here today. In April this year, I called on the New South Wales Government to upgrade the Hoskins Streets rail crossing in Nyngan. I put my concerns on the record here again today. Nyngan is divided by the railway line that's used by large freight trains to take grain and ore from Cobar and Nyngan to the ports along the coast. On one side of the track are the schools and the Bogan Shire Medical Centre, the CBD on the other side, and on the other side the hospital, the ambulance and fire station. There are 3 railway crossings within the township of Nyngan. At the Moonergy Street crossing, there's flashing lights and a pedestrian maze. At the Mitchell Street crossing, boom gates, flashing lights and a pedestrian maze. At the Hosking Street crossing, just stop signs. These crossings are a matter of a few hundred metres apart. The Moonergy Street crossing is located in the main town bypass, used by not only all the heavy vehicles, but also a high proportion of other through traffic. The crossing is close to the Bogan River and there is no clear approaching visibility of an incoming train. Trains whip through Nyngan at 80 kilometres an hour and lack the adequate safety measures at each crossing. The lack of adequate safety measures at each crossing has the community concerned. A petition obtained hundreds of signatures. Schools, the fireys, local AMBOs, business owners and the Nyngan Museum, located in the old railway station, have all expressed their concerns. Bogan Shire has written on numerous occasions to the New South Wales Government, previous Transport Ministers and the current Regional Transport Ministers, John Holland Group and the former member for Barwon, that it hasn't resulted in action. They now commission their own independent risk assessment which says something must be done. State and federal governments need to act before there's a horrible accident. We have only avoided more accidents thus far by sheer luck. I've heard of many near misses right across my electorate, and too many to name here. It was when I publicly raised the issue of the level crossings in Nyngan that I came across Maddie and her campaign born out of the tragic loss of her fiancé. Maddie's fiancé, Ethan Hunter, and his colleague, Mark Fenton, lost their lives at a passive level crossing. The loss of these two men was preventable. In the last 20 years, there have been 154 crashes between trains and vehicles at level crossings in New South Wales. 14 people have lost their lives. I heard from people in my electorate that it took lives being lost for crossings in their town to be fixed. We shouldn't rely on tragedy to drive change. And to the member for Cootamundra, I'd like to acknowledge her for bringing this petition. Thank you. You said earlier in May this year that it should not take a tragedy to make change. We have the opportunity to do everything in our power to prevent further loss of life and of the terrible impact that these accidents have on families, friends and communities. Madam Speaker, I put on the table here today that the Shooters Fishers Farmers Party will support a campaign to see Maddie's wish fulfilled. We will back flashing lights on all level crossings, on active rail lines. We back trains being fitted with reflective materials and better lights. As Maddie wrote to me on Facebook, you can't put a price tag on life. Lights will save lives. It will be worth every cent. Now, I understand it's an ambitious task. There are some 1,360 level crossings on public roads in New South Wales. Only 429 of them have flashing lights. There are a further 2,400 crossings on private roads. So yes, it's no small task. It will take investment from government. But what a stimulus program this could be. You need engineers, electricians, metal fabricators and earth movers and a whole raft of other professions and inputs. It could mean jobs in the regions. It will also mean lives are saved. I note that a review has been commissioned by the Office for the National Rail Safety Regulator and will be carried out by the Australasian Centre for Rail Innovation. This review will identify short-term options government and industry can adopt to improve level crossing safety and train visibility, as well as to consider longer-term options for improvement. This review should not delay action. What I have put on the table today is a chance for New South Wales to lead the way in rail safety. We've had tragedy after tragedy, lives lost, families shattered, train drivers forever traumatised. Let's not cycle through the same old tragedy, inquiry, review, report, government says some stuff, too hard basket, nothing changes. Everyone in this place owes it to Maddie, to Ethan, to Mark, to his children who will go through life without their father, to act, to do something. As I said, Madam Speaker, the Shooters Fishers Farmers Party stand ready to support a program to see this petition turned into action. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Thank Member for Barwon. Member for Orange. The member for Orange is seeking leave to make a contribution. Is leave granted? No, leave is not granted. I call the member for, call the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads in response.
Yeah, thank you.
Order. The Minister has the call. He'll be heard in silence.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I too would like to acknowledge the incredible work that's been undertaken by the member for Cootamundra in bringing this petition to this Parliament. And I acknowledge in the gallery today Maddie, Courtney, Shakaya and her mother Frances that are here as well. Could I also say that it's important for me to be able to talk on this petition and the work that the government is doing to make level crossings safer for rail and road users. I've met with Maddie, Angela and John several times this year since that terrible accident in February when they lost Ethan. And I want to ensure that no other family goes through that pain. And I am wholeheartedly committed to making a difference in this space. To do that, we need everyone to work together on this, across all levels of government, across industry and the community to find safer outcomes for all rail and road users. Since my initial meeting with Maddie, Angela and John, we've certainly seen this and we've made some incredible headway, both internally in transport and our external rail and road stakeholders and across government. Over the past 6 months, my office and I have been having a lot of conversations with various players. In fact, one of the very first issues I raised with the Deputy Prime Minister when he got the role was this particular matter. And it was heartening to know that he is committed to also making a difference in this space. The Deputy Prime Minister has already publicly committed to a review into the train visibility in Australia, and looking at a number of other options to help make level crossings safer for everyone. And I'd like to give a snapshot of what we've been progressing in New South Wales over the past couple of months, particularly in the technology space. We've already pulled together a working group from Transport, people who are passionate about making a difference, those from the Centre for Road Safety, to the freight teams, tapping into people with expertise on level crossing programs in other states, and to the tech teams to understand what tech solutions we may be able to deliver. Transport has engaged UTS to deliver a research project using multiple data sources like incident reports and real-time train data to conduct big data integration to identify hotspots. And from that, initiated a project exploring private level crossing technologies currently in use nationally and internationally to improve safety at private level crossings. The project included discussions with suppliers to understand technology, how it could be adapted to level crossing contexts, and what outcomes they think could be achieved with technology in this space. In October, Transport for New South Wales hosted a roundtable with 20 stakeholders from Australia, New Zealand and Canada on a level crossing workshop for over 2 hours, exploring opportunities to improve level crossing safety. The workshop provided us with an insight into potential technology to improve safety to these crossings. In parallel, Transport has sought new solutions from industry. We're planning a trial of emerging technologies in the new year in regional New South Wales. Transport is already in the process of reviewing the proposals that have been received, and we're currently going through a request for information process and working with internal and external groups to determine the best options to trial. We're also planning to trial technologies that will assist with driver distraction and drivers who use level crossings regularly and help them to develop expectations about the likelihood of encountering a train. We've also been working closely with industry to bring some of their ideas to life and to get them trialled. That's on top of the continued investment that we're making into crossing upgrades, to grade separating road and rail interfaces, and the work we're doing to reduce speed limits at all active crossings. This is just the start, and as I've previously committed to Maddie and to the Hunter family, we will continue to keep them updated along the way. I think we're on the right path, with buy-in from all stakeholders to find an outcome on an area where there isn't one solution. And we'll continue our work to ensure that every loved one returns home to their family and community at the end of the day.
I thank the Minister. The question is that the House take note of the petition, and I call the member for Cootamundra in reply.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to start by acknowledging the contributions made by other members of this place to this debate today. It is clear that we have support right across the Parliament to do more to improve level crossing safety, and we also know that this is a huge issue right across New South Wales, made abundantly clear by the sheer number of people who have signed Maddie's petition. I want to thank the Minister and Deputy Premier Paul Toole and your staff and the team in Transport for New South Wales for your dedication and the work that you've done in this space. I've had the great privilege of being part of all of these discussions. Thank you for taking me and for taking Maddie and others on this journey. And it really is a journey, and we have a long way to go. And so in closing, I'd like to again acknowledge Maddie and your family here today for everything that you're doing in this space. It's been an absolute honour and privilege to spend the last several months working closely with you on this issue. We do have a long way to go. We've got a meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister in just a couple of weeks' time, and we will continue to advocate for as many improvements as can possibly be achieved at all levels of government in relation to level crossing safety. I'd also like to thank, of course, the over 20,000 people who have signed the petition, allowing us to have this debate today. We are all on this journey together, and as the Deputy Premier and Minister have indicated, we all need to work hard, work together to ensure that every loved one returns home to their family and their community at the end of the day. Thank you.
I thank the member for Cootamundra. The question is that the House take note of the petition. All of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The debate on the 20,000 signature electronic petition on safety level crossings having concluded, I want to thank all of the members of the public who have been listening to the debate online. I also want to thank our guests in the Cooper Gallery for joining us here today and extend on behalf of this House our condolences for your loss. Thank you. In accordance with the earlier resolution and proceedings on general